Throughout history, powerful empires have risen in many parts of the world. These empires built large cities, controlled vast territories, and influenced millions of people. Their rulers commanded strong armies, their culture shaped art and knowledge, and their trade network connected distant regions. To those living during this time, such empires often seem permanent. Their power appears stable, and their influence stretched across entire continents. Roads, ports, and markets allowed goods and ideas to travel farther than ever before. In many cases, these empires became center of the world known to their people. Yet history has shown something surprising. Even the most powerful empires can disappear. Some collapse slowly over centuries, others fall much more quickly than anyone expected. In many cases, these great powers did not collapse when they were weak or poor. Instead, they decline when they are still rich, influential, and respected. Their cities were still active, the government was still functioning, the culture was still producing art, literature, and scientific ideas, but beneath the surface, challenges were beginning to grow. Large empires are complex systems. They must manage vast territory, different culture, and growing populations. Maintaining stability across such large regions requires strong leadership, economic balance, and reliable communication. When even one part of the system begins to struggle, the effects can spread across the entire empire. Sometimes environmental pressure places drag on agriculture and resources. At other times, political disagreements weaken unity within the government. Economic change can also affect trade and stability. Often, it is not just one problem that leads to the decline. Instead, several challenges appear at the same time, slowly weakening a system that once seemed unstoppable. Another important factor is size. As empires expand, it becomes harder to manage distant regions. Local leaders may gain more independence, communication becomes slower, and central authority can become less effective. Even powerful civilizations must constantly adapt to changing conditions. When they cannot adjust quickly enough, their stability may begin to fade. Despite the challenges, the rise and fall of empires is not only a story of decline, it is also a story of human creativity, ambition, and transformation. The civilizations that became before us built remarkable cities, developed advanced knowledge, and create cultural traditions that still influence the world today. Even after empires disappear, the ideas and achievements often continue to shape later society. In this video, we will explore several empires that once stood at the height of the power but eventually collapsed. From the powerful Roman Empire to the vast Mongol territories, from advanced Asian dynasty to modern superpowers, these civilizations once seemed almost impossible to defeat, yet history took a different path. By looking at their story, we can better understand how great empires rise, how they maintain their power, and why even the strongest system can eventually change or disappear. This story reminds us that power in history is rarely permanent. Every civilization, no matter how strong, is part of a much longer human journey. And the lessons from these empires continue to shape how we understand the past and how we think about the future. 1. The Western Roman Empire. When people think about powerful empires in history, The Roman Empire is often one of the first that come to mind. For many centuries, Rome stood as one of the most influential civilizations the world had ever seen. At its greatest extent, during the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire controlled a vast territory stretching across much of Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. From the Atlantic Ocean to the desert of the Near East, Roman influence shaped politics, trade, culture, and daily life of millions of people. The city of Rome itself became one of the largest and most impressive urban centers of the ancient world. Its streets were filled with markets, temples, theaters, and public buildings. Massive structures such as amphitheaters and aqueducts demonstrate the engineering skill of Roman builders. One of the reasons Rome became so successful was its ability to organize and manage territory. The Romans built an extensive network of roads that connected distant regions of empire. These roads allowed soldiers, merchants, and government officials to travel quickly across vast distances. Trade flourished throughout the empire. Goods such as grain, olive oil, wine, metals, and textile moved gradually between the different regions. Large ports along the Mediterranean Sea connect the cities from Spain to Egypt. Roman law also played an important role in maintaining stability. System of rules and administration helped manage the empire's diverse populations, which include people to many different cultures and languages. Another important strength of Rome was its military organization. Roman legions were well trained, disciplined, and carefully structured. These forces allowed empire to defend its borders and expand territory over time. However, managing such a large empire also created challenge. By the 3rd century AD, the Romans began to experience increasing pressure. Political instability became more common, and leadership sometimes changed rapidly. Maintaining large armies across distant borders required enormous financial resources. Economic difficulty also began to appear in certain regions. Trade networks sometimes face disruption, and the cost of maintaining infrastructure and defense systems grew heavier. At the same time, the empire borders faced new pressures from groups moving across Europe and Central Asia. Some of these groups sought new lands or opportunities within Roman territory. To manage this growing challenge, Roman leaders attempted several reforms. In the late 3rd century, Emperor Diocletian reorganized the administration of the empire in an effort to improve efficiency. Later, Emperor Constantine made additional change and established a new capital in the eastern city of Constantinople. These reforms helped and stabilized part of the empire, but they also gradually created a division between the eastern and the western region. The eastern half of the empire continued to remain relatively strong for many centuries. However, the western part faced increasing difficulties. During the 4th and the 5th centuries, political leaderships in the Western Roman Empire became less stable. Some regions struggled to maintain economic productivity, and local leaders sometimes gained more independence from central authority. Despite these challenges, Roman cities, culture, and institutions continued to function for many years. Too many people lived at the time. The empire still appeared powerful and stable. But gradually, the central government lost the ability to fully control all of its territories. By the year of 476 AD, a Germanic leader named Otto removed the late Western Roman emperor from power. This event is often used by historians as a symbolic moment marking the end of the Western Roman Empire. Even though the political structure of the empire ended, Roman influence did not disappear. Roman law, architecture, language, and cultural traditions continued to shape Europe for centuries. In many ways, the legacy of Rome survived long after the empire itself was gone. The story of the Western Roman Empire reminds us that even the most powerful system can face long-term challenges. While Rome remained impressive and influential, slow change over time gradually weakens its political structure. Its fall did not erase its achievements. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in the long history of European civilization. The Mongol Empire. In the early 13th century, a powerful force began to rise from the vast grasslands to the Central Asia. What started as a collection of nomadic tribes would soon grow into one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. This was the Mongol Empire. The rise of the Mongols was closely connected to one remarkable leader, Genghis Khan. Born at Temujin around 1162, he spent much of his early life facing hardship and conflict among rival tribes. Through determination, alliance, and strong leadership, he eventually united many of the nomadic groups living across the Mongolian state. Once these tribes were united, the Mongols transformed into a highly organized and disciplined force. Their armies were known for their speed, coordination, and ability to travel long distances across difficult terrain. Unlike many traditional armies that moved slowly with heavy equipment, the Mongol warriors were extremely mobile. They relied on skilled horseback riding, advanced archery, and flexible strategy that allowed them to adapt quickly during battles. The beginning in the 1200s, the Mongol armies launched a series of campaigns that expanded their territory across Asia. Within a few decades, they conquered large regions that included part of northern China, Central Asia, Persia, and Eastern Europe. By the time of Genghis Khan's death in 2027, the Mongol Empire had already become one of the largest empires in history. His successor continued this expansion, pushing the empire even further across the continent. And it greatly extended during the 13th century. The Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean all the way to Eastern Europe. It covered an enormous land area that connects many different cultures, languages, and trade routes. Despite their reputation as powerful conquerors, the Mongols also played an important role in encouraging trade and communication across their territories. One of the most significant effects of Mongol rule was the increased safety of travel along the sea route. Merchants, travelers, and scholars were able to move more freely across vast distances under the protection of Mongol authorities. This period increased connection allowed goods, technologies, and ideas to travel between East and West more easily than before. Papermaking, gunpowder technology, and various forms of knowledge moved along these roads. At the same time, European travelers such as Marco Polo were able to visit part of the Asia and bring back description of distant control. However, maintaining such a large empire presented serious challenges. The Mongol Empire was simply too vast to be early controlled by a single central authority. Communication across thousands of kilometers took time, and regional leaders often need to make decisions independently. After the death of several strong rulers, the empire gradually divided into different regions and ruled by various branches of the Mongol royal family. These regions became separate political states, including the Yuan dynasty in China, the Inca in Persia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, and the Golden Horde in part of Eastern Europe. Although these states share Mongol origins, they developed their own political system and local culture. Over time, the unity of the Aryan Mongol Empire slowly disappeared. Yet the influence of the Mongol era remains insignificant. Their empire helped connect large parts of Eurasia, encouraging cultural exchange and trade between distant civilizations. The Mongol period was also reshaped the political and economic system across many regions. The story of the Mongol Empire shows how quickly power can rise when strong leadership and organization come together, but it also shows how difficult it can be to maintain control over enormous territories. Even one of the largest empires in history eventually transformed into a small state. Still, its impact on global history continues to be remembered centuries later. During the early Middle Age, one of the most influential civilizations in the world emerged in the Middle East. This was the Abbasid Caliphate, a powerful empire that became a center of the culture, science, and learning for many centuries. The Abbasid Caliphate began in the year 750 AD after a political movement replaced the earlier Umayyad dynasty. The new rulers established their capital in a newly built city along the Tigris River. This was Baghdad. Over time, Baghdad grew into one of the most important cities in the world. Merchants, scholars, artists, and travelers came from many different regions to live and work there. The location of Abbasid capital helped it become a center of international trade. Goods from Asia, Africa, and Europe passed through its markets. Silk, spice, paper, and precious metals move along trade routes that connect distant civilizations. However, the Abbasid Caliphate was known for not only for trade, but also for its remarkable intellectual achievement. During that period, scholars in Baghdad and other cities began translating important works from ancient Greek, Persian, and Indian traditions. These translations allow knowledge from earlier civilizations to study, expand, and share. One famous settler learning was known as the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Scholars gathered there to study subjects such as mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. New discoveries were made in many fields. Advanced mathematics helped develop algebra. Astronomers studied the movement of stars and planets. Physicians wrote detailed medical texts that were used for many generations. These achievements helped preserve knowledge from the ancient but while also creating new ideas that will later influence both the Islamic world and Europe. For several centuries, the Abbasid Caliphate remained a powerful political and cultural force. However, the governing such a large and diverse empire eventually became more difficult. The territory of the Caliphate spread across vast regions, including parts of the North Africa, the Middle East, and the Central Asia. Over time, the local rulers in distant regions gained more independence. Although they still recognize the authority of the Abbasid Caliph, they often govern their territory with increasing autonomy. Political power gradually became more decentralized, and the central government in Baghdad found it harder to maintain direct control over all areas. Economic challenges also appear in some regions, especially as trade routes change and new political power emerge. Despite these difficulties, the city of Baghdad continued to thrive as a center of learning and culture for many years. But in the 13th century, the Caliphate faced a major turning point. In 1258, a Mongol force led by Hulagu Khan arrived in the region and captured the city of Baghdad. The fall of the city marked the end of the Abbasid Caliphate as a dominant political power in the region. Although this political authority of the Caliphate ended, its intellectual and cultural contribution is not disappeared. The knowledge developed during the Abbasid period continued to influence education, science, and philosophy across many parts of the world. Today, historians often refer this time as part of the Islamic Golden Age, a period when scholars make lasting contributions to human knowledge. The story of Abbasid Caliphate shows how an empire can become powerful not only through military strength but also through learning, trade, and cultural exchange. Even after its political power faded, the idea and discovery created during this era continue to shape the development of global civilization. For the Aztec Empire, in the early 16th century, one of the most powerful civilizations in Americas stood at the height of its influence. This was the Aztec Empire, a society known for its impressive cities, organized government, and rich cultural traditions. The center of Aztec world was the great city of Tenochtitlan, built on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. This city was one of the largest urban centers in the world at the time. Tenochtitlan was connected to the surrounding land by wide causeways that allowed people to travel between the city and the mainland. Canals ran through many parts of the city, and the boats were commonly used for transportation and trade. Visitors who arrive in Tenochtitlan often describe it as an extraordinary place. Large temples rose above the skyline, markets were filled with goods for many reasons, and the city was carefully organized into districts and neighborhoods. At the center of the city stood the Temple Mayor, a massive temple complex used for important religious ceremonies. Also, it were plazas, administrative buildings, and homes for priests and nobles. The Aztec Empire itself was formed through alliance and military expansion during the 4th and the 15th centuries. One important political arrangement was known as the Tribal Alliance, which united the cities of the Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Together, the city expanded influence across much of central Mexico. Many surrounding communities became part of the Aztec political system and provided tribute in the form of goods, resources, and labor. Tribute was an important part of the empire economy. It allowed the Aztec big capital to receive large quantities of food, textile, and valuable material from different regions. This system helped support the growing population of Tenochtitlan and contribute to the wealth of the empire. The Aztec also developed advanced agricultural methods. One of their most remarkable innovations was the use of the chimpas, some called floating gardens. These were carefully constructed farming areas built on shallow lake beds. Chinampas also allow farmers to grow crops efficiently, producing large amounts of food in relatively small space. These agricultural systems have sustained the large population living in and around the capital. Religion was deeply connected to everyday life in Aztec society. The people believe in many gods and follow a complex system of rituals and ceremonies. Religious festivals took place throughout the year and involved music, offerings, and community gatherings. Education was also valued in Aztec culture. Young people received training that prepared them for the different roles in society, whether as farmers, craftsmen, warriors, or leaders. Despite its strength and organization, the Aztec Empire faced certain internal challenges. Because of the empire expanded quickly, not all communities within its territory were equally loyal to Aztec rule. Some regions paid tribute but remained politically distant from the central authority. In the early 16th century, events began to unfold that would dramatically change the future of the empire. In 1519, a Spanish expedition led by Hernan Cortes arrived in the region. At first, these newcomers were unfamiliar visitors in a complex political landscape. Over time, Cortes formed alliances with several local groups who had long-standing rivalries for the Aztec. At the same time, new diseases intruded from overseas began spreading among local populations, creating additional challenges for many communities. Firstly, in the relatively short period, the balance of power in the region began to shift. By 1521, the city of Tenochtitlan had fallen, making the end of the Aztec Empire as the dominant political power. Although the empire itself collapsed, the culture and tradition of the Aztec people did not disappear. Their descendants continued to live throughout the regions, the preserving elements for their language, custom, and heritage. Today, the ruins of Tenochtitlan lie beneath part of modern Mexico City. Archaeologists continue to uncover temples, artifacts, and artworks that reveal the remarkable achievement of this one powerful civilization. The story of Aztec Empire shows how quickly history can change. Even the strong and organized society can face unexpected challenges that reshape its future. Yet the legacy of Aztec continues to influence the culture and history of Mexico and the wider world. The Tang Dynasty. More than 1,000 years ago, China experienced one of the most remarkable periods in its long history. This era was known as the Tang Dynasty, a time of cultural growth, economic strength, and international influence. The Tang Dynasty began in the year of 600 and 1880, when a new ruling family established control over a large part of China after the fall of the previous Sui dynasty. Over time, the Tang rulers built a stable government and created systems that helped manage a vast and diverse population. During this period, China became one of the most powerful and advanced societies in the world. One of the most impressive features of the Tang Dynasty was its capital city, Chang'an. Located in central China, Chang'an grew into one of the largest cities of the ancient world. It was carefully planned with wide streets, large markets, and impressive government buildings. People from many different regions came to live and trade in Chang'an. Merchants, diplomats, and travelers arrived from Central Asia, the Middle East, and other parts of the world. Because of this international connection, the city became a vibrant center of cultural exchange. Trade played an important role in the success of the Tang Dynasty. The famous Silk Road connected China with distant regions across Asia and even part of Europe. Along this road, traders transport silk, spice, ceramics, and other valuable goods. In return, new ideas, technology, and cultural tradition entered China from other civilizations. The Tang period was also known for its achievement in art and literature. Poetry became especially popular, and many poets created works that are still admired today. These poems often describe nature, daily life, friendship, and reflection of society. Painting and sculpture also developed during this era. Artists experimented with new styles to capture landscape, animal, and human emotion. Religion and philosophy play an important role in Tang society as well. Buddhism, which had arrived in China a century earlier, became widely practiced during this time. Temples and monasteries appeared in many cities and towns. At the same time, traditional Chinese beliefs such as Confucianism and Taoism continued to influence government, education, and everyday life. For many years, the Tang dynasty remained strong and stable. However, as time passed, the new challenges began to appear. One major turning point occurred in the 8th century with a large rebellion led by the military leader named An Lushan. This rebellion caused serious disruption across many parts of the empire and weakened the authority of the central government. Although the Tang government eventually regained control, the effect of the rebellion continued to influence the dynasty for many years. After this period, regional military governors gradually gained more independence. These leaders controlled large armies and often made decisions without direct approval from the central government. As the power increased, it became more difficult for the Tang rulers to maintain complete control over distant provinces. Economic pressure and political rivalries also contributed to instability in the later years of the dynasty. Even though the Tang dynasty still possessed impressive cultural achievements and important cities, the political structure that once held the empire together slowly began to weaken. By the early 10th century, the dynasty finally came to an end and a series of political struggles. Despite its eventual collapse, the Tang dynasty left a powerful legacy. Its cultural influence shaped the Chinese society for generations, and many of its achievements in art, literature, and government continue to inspire later dynasties. Historians often look back on the Tang period as one of the golden age of Chinese civilization. The story of the Tang Dynasty reminds us that even during the time of great prosperity, hidden challenges can rarely change the balance of the power. Yet creativity and achievement of that era remain an important part of world in history today.